create meaning in your own job. And it's absolutely possible. And there's lots and lots of people that already do that.
What's shaking? Welcome back to All In. I'm your host, Rick Jordan. I have a guest today that's incredible because she is the author of Do Good at Work, founder and president of Vera Works, a firm that's global specializing in workplace purpose. How many of you out there are stuck in stupid jobs, or at least you think they're stupid jobs and feel like you have no purpose? We're going to talk about that today. And she can be seen drawing cartoons or trying to surf the waves of San Clemente, California. Bea Boccalandro, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rick. I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Let's dive into some of this stuff because there's been a lot of job place disruption over the past year. And a lot of individuals might be, I remember back, 12 years ago during the huge recession and that huge crash that there were CEOs that were working at Taco Bell, and just it was really disheartening to them because they lost purpose. But there might be people even stuck in jobs that might have changed a little bit, same job or whatever, but now they feel like it's just stupid after going through this stuff this past year. What's your take on this whole thing? Where are we at? Shed some light on this for me.
Yes. Yes. So, you said in your intro, some of you might feel like you're stuck at jobs that don't have purpose or that feel meaningless in fact, we know pre-pandemic that the vast majority of Americans are there, and in fact, the vast majority of global workers find themselves in that unfortunate place where they end their work week and they're like, did that do anything for anybody? And unfortunately, most people answer, I don't think so. What's interesting is that, so, 2020 just, it just shattered our hearts, right? It was just a very heartbreaking year. There's research done by the Happiness Research Institute in Copenhagen that says 2020 brought so much unhappiness that it would be the equivalent of all, 7+ billion inhabitants of the planet going through a divorce at the same time. Like, that is how heartbreaking it was. But uh and that's just a tragedy, and that's just, there's nothing really positive about that. Nevertheless, one of the things that has happened in 2020, I've been doing this for 20 years, is that individuals that, weeks before were, if not happy, at least numbingly going through their day-to-day tasks, call me. So I have a friend, I've known her since high school. I'm going to call her Cindy.
Let's
um,
call her
and
Cindy.
let's call her Cindy. Okay.
Yes.
She knows what I do. She knows I bring purpose to people's jobs, which means make a positive contribution. You're all about that, Rick. So you totally get it. And she's known this for a very long time. She's in marketing, has never shown any interest in anything I do. Uh, but in May of 2020, she called me and she said, "Hey, I need your help. I would like to do an ad, like social marketing ad to have people feel proud that they're staying at home, that they're heroes for doing that, and clean up some of the misinformation." So it was a complete, she wasn't going to get paid for this. It was complete sort of twist towards the positive of her everyday job. She had the resources to do it. But my point is, if 2020 did this to Cindy, it means it probably got to everybody, because this was someone who was not at all uh oriented towards contribution to others. And what's interesting is that she read my book and she participated in the very first book club that I did and was one of the most active participants. So it wasn't just this flash that happened in May. It really was this awakening of, maybe there's more important things to be doing through work than what I'm doing now. And, the good news is, you don't have, like, her examples is actually a good one, because you don't have to leave the job that you have to do this. That's actually the whole point of my book. So if someone listening is going, "Oh my god, that kind of happened to me, but I don't know what to do because the like what am I'm not going to go back and like become a doctor or a nurse or a teacher and and the job market's not very strong anyway, so I don't really want to leave my job to find one that gives me more meaning." And my response to that would be create meaning in your own job, and it's absolutely possible, and there's lots and lots of people that already do that.
That's awesome. I believe that for the most part too, that you can find your purpose and really meaning almost in any situation that you're in. You know, and I say almost because there are I'm also a big advocate, this is on the other side too, of changing your environment in order to more so align with your true self, which I think is possible, but there can be a process sometimes too. You know, in getting to that point to where you feel like, okay, it's time to do that. And one of the biggest grips I know that is just sometimes even strangulating for a lot of people is money. So if they're in that position to where it's like, oh, I can't go out and try to find a new job because this is what's providing my sole source of revenue or income for food on my table to buy my kids clothes. You know, and the job market's just horrible right now because of post-pandemic recession, all of this. It can be a bit daunting. You know, so when you say find purpose where you're at right now in your current job, well, how does someone start to go about that?
Yeah, so it's a lot simpler than one would imagine, which doesn't mean it's easy.
I
So
love that, by the way. It's
yeah.
not
So
complex, but it takes work.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and so I'll give you an example. So let's say you design surfboard fins, and you're like, okay, not it's a job, and maybe it's a fun job because you're designing something that people have fun on. And so there's some inherent purpose in that. But what if you go, wow, I'm really concerned about the oceans. I'm a surfer. It's like we have this climate crisis going on, and it's like, I wonder if I can do something about it. Well, what if I put sensors in the fins, and these sensors sent information to scientists to help mitigate climate change? So that that designer took their job and turned it towards something positive. And that's a real case, by the way. There's over a hundred examples in the book. That's just one case. Or let's say that you work at a parking lot, and and you're well like w- okay, I'm like flagging cars in and like charging them, like, how do I turn that into a purposeful job? Well, there's someone, his name is Leroy. Actually, he's no longer there because he got promoted, which is what tends to happen when people start doing this. But he got promoted, and then he got offered a better job, so he's no longer doing this. But what he was doing a few years ago was, he said, I noticed that a lot of the tires are bald, and that's incredibly dangerous. I know that that's one of the contributors to highway crashes and fatalities. And I can do something about that because all I have to do is measure the tires. It takes him a few seconds. And then he just kindly alerts owners that, hey, did you know your back passenger tire is a little bald? And he says he's gotten hugs from single mothers that are like, oh my God, I have a 3-year old and I can't believe I was like risking his life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So you can really, almost with any level of authority you have, there are ways to twist what you're doing or do something a little bit more, or even just do it differently. Let's say that you're buying supplies or something. It's like, well, maybe you decide, well, maybe there's a way for me to buy these supplies from a black owned business, or from a company that is that performs very well on the environmental scale, so that these supplies aren't putting plastic in the oceans or aren't increasing the carbon footprint. So
And that's
uh,
because it's
s-
something that resonates with you personally. Is that right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the cool thing is that the ideas you come up with are going to resonate with you. That's why you came up with the idea. So the surfboard fins, he really cares about the oceans. And uh, you know, Leroy, he's actually like, you know, he's really into like car racing and stuff. So he knows this stuff and he knows how dangerous cars can be. So I think, I mean, the beauty of kind of do it yourself purpose at work is that by definition, what you come up with is going to be meaningful for you because that's what you see, that's your lens.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. So there's a definition that I have, right? I think this is your definition. Making adjustments to the work week to make meaningful contributions to others for a societal cause. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. Yep.
Yeah,
So
that
that
go ahead. What's the definition or what's the
Yeah, so
definition
that's
for
the
you?
definition of social purpose, and it's a pretty standard one. Psychologists use it, and so you know, yeah. And if you're doing that at work, if you're making a contribution, a meaningful contribution to others or to a societal cause, you're doing what I've dubbed job purposing. Like you've purposed your job.
I like that. So let's look at from the devil's advocate side here, because remember when we were just talking about a little bit before how you said it's simple, but it takes effort. And I'm like, you have to put in work, even though it's not complex for something like this. So how is that from like a mental bandwidth perspective? Because these individuals now, right? And where's that threshold? Because a lot of these individuals already feel just stressed, emotionally stressed because of where they're working. And now it's like, oh my God, there's even more work I have to do to find a purpose. Where's that to where would that contribute to burnout, or is there a way to just simplify this so that it doesn't contribute? Where's that crossing over point in your mind to say, okay, this is something I should put effort in towards because it's good for me?
Yes, I love that question. So uh, when I do keynotes in person, but now I've done them on webinars too. I often start off by asking people, "Here's what you're going to do over the next 5 minutes. You're going to make a contribution to someone or to a societal cause." I usually have slides, so I put up on the slide some ideas. You can go into LinkedIn and give someone a positive recommendation. You can send a text to someone who works for you. Just you can do just something kind. You can't spend more than $5. So you can't spend more than 5 minutes or $5. And what I do is before I ask them on a scale 1 to 10, how stressed are you? And then I ask them the same question afterwards. And then I ask them, if your stress went up, stand up. And now if there's more than like 100 people, like a room of like 500 or 1,000 will have a handful of people stand up. So really less than 1% will stand up. So their stress went up if they did this positive thing. It just got outside of whatever their own issues or goals or objectives or self-serving, and they did something. So then I ask, if your stress stayed the same, go ahead and stand up. And between 20 and 40% of the room stand up. And then I ask, if your stress went down, go ahead and stand up. And now this is between 60 and 80%. Now stand up. And this happens every time. The only reason I had the guts to try it the first time is because scientists have proven this over and over again. So I was like, I'm going to try this and see if it works. Um,
So you didn't just go into it blind. Yeah. Saying,
no,
oh
not
God,
that
what
I
if this
haven't tried.
backfires?
Yeah, well, not that that hasn't happened to me. It has.
Oh, yeah.
But
Anybody who's ever spoken on stage has had something
well, thank
backfire on
you.
them. Yes.
Yeah, thanks for saying that.
I feel
Um,
you.
yeah. So, and in fact, scientists have found they have put people in MRIs and then compared people who are doing something for someone else, society, social purpose, versus someone who's just doing something fun, and like listening to a song or something, and they know that the stress response in the brain when they like prick their finger or something is higher in the individuals who aren't doing something that's social purpose. So this sounds completely counterintuitive, because we've been we've been kind of duped into a mythology around what serves us best. But it sounds counterintuitive, but when we as part of our jobs, do something transcendent. That would be what Viktor Frankl would call it. Like, think about others or a societal cause. Not only does our stress go down, but our anxiety goes down. We're happier, we're less likely to have cardiovascular disease. We are 24% less likely to die in any given year. That's how much healthier we are, because we are wired for this. We are first and foremost tribe members. That's when we were in the African savannah, we couldn't survive alone. That we're not polar bears. We can't, we're pathetic as humans alone in the wild. So we are so hardwired for contribution that it actually makes us healthier and happier. And in fact, when they look at studies of burnout, and specifically there's one type of burnout that comes from taking on too many problems. It's called compassion fatigue. When they look at studies of compassion fatigue, what they find is that it occurs not because we are taking on the problems of others or trying to contribute to others, like, but it occurs because we know the problems are there and we can't do anything about it. So it's actually worse if you're at a job and you see, like, for example, let's say you work at a grocery store and you see a single mother like struggling with their toddler or something, and you're like, oh my God, it's not part of my job. And plus, my heart can't take this. I just, I don't want to witness this. I'm just going to go in the back room and ignore it. That's more likely to cause burnout than actually if you're like, I can take 20 seconds and help this woman out. And she might start crying, and who knows, like, you might be exposing yourself to the suffering of someone else, but that is not what causes burnout. What causes burnout is to not be able to do anything about it.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well,
It's kind of counterintuitive,
yeah,
yeah.
let's clarify. You say what causes burnout is to not be able to do anything about it. So are you talking the that it's you're in a scenario to where you don't have any action to take, or are you talking where you're choosing not to take action?
um you have to be aware that you have to be aware of the suffering, but, like, who isn't? Right? So it's really almost always the second. You know
Where
what
you're
I'm saying?
choosing not to
Like,
take the action, yeah.
yeah, and even
You're
if we're
avoiding.
not cognitively aware,
Yeah.
like, we could, like, show up at a meeting and it's like someone is, like, not talkative and they seem down. We're picking that up. And when, if not consciously, subconsciously, and if we're not doing anything about it, that kind of weighs on us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, a coach of mine always tells me, it takes way more effort to not be yourself than the way that you're wired than it does to actually just let yourself run free, and let yourself do it how we're made, for sure. You know, we're talking about, societal purpose and job purpose. What about managers in it? Is it can this apply to where you can give team that kind of purpose also?
Absolutely. So, that's my day job. That's what I've done over the last 20 years. I work with just big Fortune 500 companies, Disney, FedEx, PwC, uh, Toyota. And that's what I do. I help them bring purpose to their own employees, essentially. So absolutely. The reason I wrote the book was because I can only get to so many companies, and there are only so many companies that are willing to to take this on for their employees. So the book is actually meant to get to someone who, regardless of whether your company is going to help you with this or not, you can actually do it on your own. Having said that, there is a section in the book that is for managers, so that it kind of goes through the steps of doing it. If you're a manager, from a line supervisor all the way to a CEO, those principles work.
Oh, that's cool. Now, when it comes to the purpose of that group, is it collaborative how you come up with that, or is it the manager that dictates what the purpose is?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, it can be either way, frankly. I'm sure everybody hears that. It's like collaborative is better. It is better, but what's amazing is that again, we're so hardwired for social purpose that even when it's dictated, it actually almost always works beautifully.
That's
Unless
great.
I mean, as long as it's authentic. As long
Sure,
as it's
sure.
authentic. If it's inauthentic, if like you feel like you're being manipulated into it so that the manager looks good, but like if you this happens all the time because here's how it happens. Someone founds a company and then they really care about something because their mother got Alzheimer's, and so that's what they really care about. So as a company, they donate to that cause. They sign up for walks raising money for that cause. They educate all employees on it. That's actually pretty shoved down employees' throats in a sense, but because it's such a it's such a genuine, beautiful response. Uh, it creates what social scientists call elevation, which is like a really good feeling in employees, like witnessing that someone cares and that they're trying to involve you. So even that works. Like it's not that terrible to have it come from above, but it is better for it to be collaborative because and that's actually so I have 8 drivers of success for job purposing in the book. And one of them is that it's employee crafted. So social scientists know that if we play a role in the decision making or in making something, we're more attached to it. We value it more. They call it the IKEA effect. So because they've literally checked to see like if you buy at IKEA and you make the bed versus you buy at IKEA and you hire them to make the bed for you, even if the price is exactly the same, you feel if you make the bed yourself, you think that bed is like so much more valuable. You're so much more attached to it, even if it's a complete pain in the neck to do, right? So because
That's
of the
kinda how I
IKEA
feel. I'd
effect.
rather pay somebody to assemble that, especially if it's IKEA furniture, because that sucks to put together.
Yeah, but see, you would like your bed more if you went through all the trouble of like, I can't get the screw in, and there's one missing,
I don't know.
So there's
I might come to that burnout phase if I put together too much IKEA furniture. Oh my gosh,
Yeah, I hear you.
that's great.
I hear you.
Yeah, there's so many things in that furniture. I can chase this squirrel forever, so I'm just gonna get off this right now.
The furniture.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's what I love pre-assembled things, that's my favorite, and then, the stuff comes delivered just ready to roll, that's the best ever. But still, I understand what you're saying because there's a certain satisfaction in being able to build and craft something, so if there was any other example besides IKEA, I would have been like, "Yes, amen." You'd be, but
Well, what's funny is like I hate cooking. So when I read that study, because I was like, but this doesn't apply to my cooking. It tastes delicious to me when other people cook. So I don't know. It might not apply. I'd rather have other people cook and eat than me cook and eat. And I'm pretty sure it tastes just fine when other people
Yeah,
cook.
there
So
you
I
go.
I don't know. Maybe
You
they need
feel
to
me now in
check
your
that.
core,
Yeah.
yes, okay.
Yeah.
It's
So I
IKEA
understand where you're coming from,
IKEA for
Rick.
me, it's cooking for you. There we go. That's great.
Exactly. I understand.
That's hilarious. Tell me about VeraWorks.
Yeah, so Vera Works basically helps apply these principles in companies. So like I mentioned a whole bunch of brands that I've helped with that. And so we it's very in right now. So we work with companies globally, and if if you want employees to have a bounce in their step because they feel like they have a sense of purpose and that the company stands for more than just making a profit for those who are lucky enough to own stock in it, then I can help a company do that.
That's cool. When you say that it's very in right now, what do you mean by that?
Well, mm, uh that same experience that Cindy had where in 2020 she's like, "Oh my god, there could be so much more to my job and I kind of would really want there to be more." It's happening at the C-suite. So I mean, I've heard just 3 weeks ago, I heard, a CEO say, I just realized I don't know how much longer I'll have this job. It'll probably just be 5 or 6 years, is my guess. And I just realized I might just, the world might just be the same. Like when I came in and when I went out. And he's very successful. The company's doing quite well, even through 2020. But the success is it's all financial and growth and those sorts of things. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There isn't. Those are great goals, but if that's all we're striving for, if we don't have some loftier, more kind of emotional uh direction to go to in life, then it's incredibly hard to be satisfied.
For sure, and I know what you meant by it's in it. I see it happening too, and especially coming out of last year. There's a lot more budget, especially in the fortune companies, that they're putting towards health and wellness programs. Because there's a shift in culture right now, and if it was a pandemic that sparked that, but it was interesting to me too because going into last year, it was like the focus a lot, and this is not I mean, I can make political statements, I've been known to, but this is not that at all. It was just more of like common sense thinking to me of, there's so much focus on the vaccines and all this other stuff, but there was zero focus when I saw studies like the University of New York, how they said that outside of age, which was the first determining factor for mortality, it was obesity. That was the second biggest determining factor. And you look across the United States and it's like, why are we not putting more effort and dollars into educating people the right way and into health and wellness? So from a government perspective, you don't necessarily see that happening. But from a corporation perspective, it's encouraging to see that these dollars are being spent in these areas that you are an expert in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really heartened by that as well. And the reason I do the reason I try to use companies as a lever for good, which is my day job, you can just, sum it up like that, is because uh, it's a really strong lever. So the overwhelming proportion of the economy is the private sector. So you can put all of the government sector. I mean, we think we have big government, but you can put federal, state, local, municipal, all government together, then throw in the entire nonprofit sector, and the corporate sector is still 3 to 4 times bigger. Like, I mean, it depends what measure you look, like whether it's number of employees or whether it's assets or whether it's revenue or income, but GDP. But so it's if the corporate sector does a has a reasonably positive response to something, it can move the needle, you know. and I am encouraged at how much more of that is happening in 2020, since 2020, or you know what I mean. The pandemic era.
Yeah,
um
for
but
sure.
yeah,
Coming out
but
of that
there's
too, you're right. I can see that moving the needle. I mean, if that's the type of government that we have, which is a democratic republic, to where there's representatives that act on our behalf and they see that trends are going a certain direction, it behooves them to try to stay in office to jump on that bandwagon too. I'm hoping at some point that there's health and wellness programs that come from a federal level, at least some kind of framework or incentives to where it comes to corporations to provide these kinds of things. I mean, there's even out of the box things, it's like gym memberships covering those, that's something that's been around forever in a lot of places. But what about all the other things, like some kind of nutrition education, for that, or especially what you do, bringing someone in so that imagine the productivity increase. I'm sure you see this all the time from when you consult with these firms to where it's now all of a sudden they're producing 4, 5, 20, 100x what they were because now they feel like they have purpose into what they're doing.
right. Yes. Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because there is one study that it was like 181% higher
Yeah.
productivity. And in fact, the researcher Adam Grant, he didn't believe the results because they were so over the top. But then, he replicated it and over and over again, and he's like, "Wow, I guess that's what it is." And I like what you're saying because, you know, when we think of okay, so we're all messed up around the concept of purpose. And so when we think of like my job has no purpose, we tend to think like, well, okay, because it's not saving lives or, it's not teaching children or something. But really, if we can find a way through our jobs that we just kind of we help our coworkers, our colleagues, or even support our customers better, that is social purpose. Like that also counts. And there's, like you mentioned, there's a lot to do there because th- there are a lot of contributions that could make a big difference
Like
to
working a double
coworkers.
shift at a toilet paper factory to put those plies together, how many fights were saved in the grocery store aisle once they were
Right,
restocked,
okay.
right?
Right, and calamities at
Yes.
home, right? That you don't wanna have that calamity. But, one of the examples in the book is, it's a woman who's a triathlete, and she found her job really boring, um, and she she's very much into health. So she's like the person who's, like, grinding up like eggshells in the morning because to like try it out if putting it in the coffee is it's going to give her more energy when she runs a marathon. Like she's always like learning about health and reads all the books and stuff. And she just and she's very fit. And so like all these other people in the office were like, how do you do it? And how do you manage to not eat fast food? So she realized I can help them. So she just started this Monday blog. It was like an email list essentially to a few people, like, here's a tip for this week. Like, just, you know, exchange your sugary beverage for water for 1 week. And you can make it bubbly water if you want. And, and so then she got more and more and more followers. And then at some point, the HR department was like, actually, we really like what you're doing. Can we turn it not like an email list, but like actually post it on the internet? And then can you do like lunch things? And she says, my job went from just feeling dull to like I'm excited about going into work during the week. And this is a relatively ancillary thing to her job. Her job has to do with construction. It's like but it's enough to kind of shift her view of the job. But she saw some of those needs that you're talking about in people that worked with her.
That's great, and she was able to find purpose in that too. That's cool. That's awesome to be able to make that shift. Here's something, because if you call Wednesday hump day, right? And nobody likes Mondays. I'm just throwing a bunch of cliches out there because I think they're stupid. And to me, it's like Sunday is like another day of the week. You can rest any day, you can work any day, as long as you've got the right amounts of everything that work right for you. And I realize that's very different for each person. And my purpose is different than somebody else's purpose. So but for the majority of people that will work like that 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job, right? Or that 5 days a week, whatever it is. You know, how do you what tips do you have to really end your work week proud? And to help to start make that shift to say, "Wow, I feel like I had purpose."
Yeah. So, remember I said it was simple, right? So, all the examples I've given are like relatively simple things. So, helping your coworkers with their health, giving them a tip and, kind of coaching them, changing putting a sensor in a fin. I can't remember what other examples I've given, but they're all pretty simple. But one of the problems is that we so we have a certain lens for the way we look at the world, and the lens that we use at work is really narrow. It's just like, okay, I need to do this, and ask this person this, and send this in. And so that lens usually does not see what the triathlete saw. Like, oh, actually, I have something that I'm happy to share with people that could be helpful. She's unusual for having noticed, and frankly, she probably noticed because people were asking her. But and so if we're focused on one thing, we don't see the things around it. There's a really famous experiment with they had people look at a video of people clad in black and people clad in white passing a basketball around, and then they asked, it's, you can look it up, it's like gorilla, you put inattentional blindness gorilla, it comes up on but and what they so they told viewers, they're like, count the number of times that the people in white pass the basketball. And so that's what people were doing, except that it's only 40 seconds or something, the whole video. At some point during the video, this woman clad in a full gorilla outfit prances onto the center court, pounds her chest a few times, and prances off to the other side. And then they asked the viewers, what'd you think of the gorilla? And about half of us miss it. We're like, what gorilla? There was no like, what gorilla? So so it's called inattentional blindness. So going back to work, we're going in there and we're looking at, like, the agenda items and who we need to invite and what we need to send, or, what shelves we need to stock or boxes we need to move. Like, that's what we're looking at. And we're not looking for opportunities to make a contribution. So there's a very long way of saying that if you just on Wednesday or Thursday set aside, it can even be 15 minutes if that's all you can do. Just put it in your calendar every week. 15 minutes, half an hour is better. And you just put, whatever you want to call it. This is my job purposing, idea generation. And you just spend those 15 minutes or half an hour asking yourself a few questions, like, the last person I interacted with through work, how were they doing? Did I even ask? Is there a way to do whatever I was doing right before this in a way that's like more environmentally sustainable, that's more inclusive? So you might go like, oh yeah, actually I just ran a meeting and I realized actually the women didn't talk in the meeting. Next time I'll make sure that I ask for their input. So what that 15 minutes or half an hour does is that it shifts your focus, to the gorilla, essentially, to
Wow.
what you, yeah. And then, you'll see that, you can do it on Wednesday or Thursday. You have like 1 to 3 days, I guess, to then implement it. And you will sit down for dinner on Friday, implement whatever idea you came up with, right? You will sit down for dinner on Friday, and it will feel much better. Your work week will feel like it was a different, like a different job almost.
Wow, that's fantastic, B. Thank you. So everyone can find your book on Amazon, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
anywhere books are sold, pretty
beautiful.
much. Yeah,
Do Good at
yeah.
Work is Be Good, B's book, and you can connect with B at boccalandro.com. I'm gonna spell that. It'll be in the show notes too, but
Well, you
B-E-A.
can.
Go
Let
ahead.
me give you an easier
Do it.
URL, which kind of goes. Yeah, you can go to dogoodatwork.com.
That
So
I can
all
spell.
together.
Yay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I couldn't do that to you guys. Like insist on that URL. So dogoodatwork.com.
DoGoodAtWork.com. B, thank you for being on today, and thank you for giving us all some tips on how to find purpose. It's so important coming out of this year. You're amazing. Thank you.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Rick. Keep up the good work.
What's shaking? Thank you for joining me on the All In Podcast. Click the subscribe button and smash that bell for notifications. Text me, 312-535-8520. Follow me on social media at Mr. Rick Jordan. See you next episode. I am Rick Jordan, and I approve this message.